Good morning, folks. You can go ahead and get a seat. We'd love to get started. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. I know we have some folks getting some last minute coffee and refreshments. Welcome to the 2022 NVTC and PRTC Legislative Forum. I'm Kate Mattice, and I'm the Executive Director of the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission, and we are just so delighted to have all of you here in person. And really thank you for starting our Monday with us. I hope that coffee and tea are flowing. Monday mornings are tough, and it was a little chilly this morning, so it's wonderful to see so many of you here. So this is our annual opportunity for our transit leaders to share with all of you an overview of what's happening in the world of public transit here in Northern Virginia. What are our legislative priorities, and what are the things that we can do to strengthen public transit that is so important to our communities? I do have a couple of housekeeping items that I'd like to share with you. We are sharing all the legislative agendas from NVTC-PRTC, and VRE virtually this year. On your program, there's a QR code. And so you can click to that and you'll get linked to those three legislative agendas. And we are recording this event. We are not live streaming it, but we're recording it so that we can put it up on our website the next day or two. We'll actually have a link to it. It is a YouTube site. And for this and any of our Northern Virginia Transportation Commission public events, you can find those at youtube.com/NovaTransit. And of course, I would be remiss to say, feel free to tweet, I can't even say the right word, tweet and post everywhere about today's forum, using the hashtag Nova Transit Forum. We've got that up here as well. So it has been a huge year for transit in Northern Virginia, not unlike others, or maybe very different from others. Just a few weeks ago, many of us took part in celebrations for the opening of the Silver Line to Dulles and into Loudoun County. That was quite an event. And I think many of us went through many hours of wonderful ribbon cuttings to celebrate all the things that are associated with that. We've really already seen how both phases of the Silver Line have transformed the region. And it's great to see Metro connecting even more residents and job centers. We've also seen a major rebound in bus ridership in particular, with even more to come with services along I-66 that are now going to benefit from the opening of the express lanes. And finally, good news late last week, and I do hope it's still good news, was averting the freight rail strike that could have seriously affected VRE service. And so obviously a lot of things that are going on, a lot of things literally within just the last couple of weeks. But we do know there are challenges ahead. We know there are fiscal cliffs as federal funding goes away. And we also know for all of our transit systems that are here today, as well as all of ours throughout the region, there are a lot of hurdles related to staffing needs. And then also the reality of how we're moving people around our region, because that's changed so much. So we're going to expect to hear more about that today and ideas to keep our transit agencies running well. I am so excited to see so many folks in the audience today, and I am going to do some general recognitions so that I don't miss anybody. That's always my hope. I've learned for many years, if you have a list, inevitably you miss somebody. So I'm going to go some big, broad categories. NVTC commissioners, can you please stand up and wave and be recognized? Thank you so much for coming. Fantastic. Good morning. And commissioners from PRTC, our joint partner on this event. Thank you so much. We also do have a number of other local officials as well as state elected officials. Can you go ahead and stand up and wave and be recognized? Fantastic. And I'm just making sure, I knew that Mary Hines from the CTV was planning to make it, but something happened. I don't think we have anybody else from the Commonwealth Transportation Board here this morning. All right, wonderful. And finally, I know we have staff from many elected offices here, including members of Congress and state house and Senate. Can you stand up and give a wave so we can recognize you as well? Thank you so much. And now for our event to begin, I'd like to hand over the microphone to NVTC's chair, Kanika Gietti, to invite and introduce our first speaker.
All right, everybody hear me okay? I always get a little worried because I'm quiet, but then I could be loud if I need to be. But good evening, good morning, everyone. Clearly, I'm not a morning person, those of you that know me, but I'm Canek Aguirre, and I think this will be my second to last duty as chair of NVTC. It's been a great year. It's been really difficult though the last couple of years, as we all know, due to the pandemic. But this year we did start to bounce back. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the steady leadership of Miss Katie Crystal. I know she's over here. She's shy about it, but 2 years prior, she helped to make my transition to chair very smooth, and I hope I can facilitate a smooth transition to our future chair as well. And I don't think she's here today. I think she had an emergency, but we've dealt with a lot of major changes, a lot of major challenges with WMATA and continue to, but we've also had some major accomplishments. NVTC helped coordinate services during the shutdown of the yellow and blue line, kept a steady eye on the return of the service of the 7000 series cars. And halfway through the year, we welcomed the new GM who's joining us today as well. And last month, as was mentioned, we opened the long-awaited Silver Line of Dulles. It was really intriguing. I didn't know the 60+ year history of trying to make that happen. And of course, at the event, everybody had a story of it was on its deathbed. It was on its last gasp, but we pulled it from the deathbed and we gave it that charge. So it was really exciting to finally see that come to fruition. I was hoping to have a second opening for Potomac Yard, but we could wait for next year. That'll be okay. If you haven't had a chance to read our report on WMATA, I highly encourage you to check it out. So when you get to that QR code and you could peruse through the website and everything, definitely check out our report on WMATA. Staff takes a lot of time, a lot of effort to put that together. And speaking of staff, that's one of the last things I want to talk about because a lot of the work that they're doing kind of goes under the radar, but we have a really great group here, and that's they've just been doing some really amazing work throughout the year and over the years under Ms. Matthijs's leadership at NVTC. In about a week or so, we're going to be unveiling a really cool transit dashboard. If you didn't catch our meeting last week on Thursday, you can catch it on YouTube. I just loved the facial expressions from our staff. They were so excited about it, and so was the rest of the room as well. It's very infectious, but you're going to be able to see a lot of different data points. And just having this data easily accessible just makes things a lot more transparent and able to tell our story around transit in the region as well. So we also have our community choice program, which helps to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and single occupancy vehicle trips with projects across the region. Very successful. We've also stepped up our game in public outreach and marketing. If you've seen any of our videos throughout the year or our most recent video, you'll know that I won't be winning any Oscars anytime soon, but our staff has produced some really great promotional media. And I'm also super proud of some of the multilingual, bilingual outreach and advertising we've been able to put together. It's been very successful, and our vendor actually said that this is going to be a model that they can use for future bilingual and multilingual media promotion. So really excited about that. We're getting a lot of hits on social media. We're getting a lot of responses on surveys, and it really helps to reach a larger audience and also be more representative of those who are riding our public transit throughout the region. So really, really proud of that. But that's enough of me being an infomercial for NVTC. So now I'd like to introduce our very special guest, Congressman Don Beyer. I'm especially excited because this is actually my first time being able to introduce my congressman and constituent. Honestly, he needs little introduction as he's been a champion in our Commonwealth for many years. Congressman Beyer has been representing Virginia's 8th Congressional District since 2015 and was recently elected to his 5th term. During his time in the House, Congressman Beyer has been a champion for transit, advocating for multimodal transportation infrastructure, bus rapid transit, and zero-emission bus legislation. He was also a big supporter of the bipartisan infrastructure law, which we hope our region will benefit from some of those dollars. So wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We're very happy to have with us today, Congressman Don Beyer.
Thank you, Canek, very much. Good morning and welcome what is still the 8th Congressional District. I'm sure you realize this already, but I am extraordinarily fortunate to represent the best congressional district in the country. We have the most educated district as measured by number of adults with a 4-year college degree. We have the lowest unemployment rates in the country. We're home to more Peace Corps volunteers and more generals and admirals than any district. Number one in federal workers, of course. We have the most politically sophisticated district in the country, measured in so many different ways, but including by number of Hill staffers who live here. Business loves us. Boeing, Amazon, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, General Dynamics, Nestle, and many thousands of small and medium-sized businesses. And then our universities, George Mason, where I'm an undergraduate student right now, Virginia Tech, UVA, Marymount, and many others. But then when folks come to visit, Mount Vernon, Arlington National Cemetery, the Pentagon, the Eternal Flame, Woodlawn, the National Science Foundation, the CIA, MITRE Corporation, DARPA, the Patent and Trade Office, Frank Lloyd Wright buildings in the north and the south, Don Beyer Volvo. I could go on all morning. And maybe the best part, to the person, the most enlightened and responsible elected officials anywhere in the world. I'm so thrilled to be here with you. But what I value most about our home and all of Northern Virginia is the prodigious amount of social capital that you have created here. And we have incredible nonprofits. And when we first got earmarks again last year, 10 last year, 15 this year, we thought, well, we'll help some of our nonprofits. We did a little research. There were 1,000 just in the 8th district. How do you spread 15? So we asked you instead. It was a lot better. Our kids get beautiful educations. The amount of charitable giving here is, there's probably no place in the country like it. Turnout in Northern Virginia decides all statewide elections, one way or the other. And we boast among the most diverse populations of any community in the world. And this is our exceptional strength, the strong foundation of the growth of our culture and of our economy. And then there's the transportation. I'm so glad you guys are here. I looked it up again last night. We have the second longest commute times in America. We're 2 minutes faster than New York City. When will the federal government ask our workers to come back again? Randy and I were just talking about a great idea of requiring them to all come back and fill Metro. And when we're still the top 5 in congestion behind Boston and Philadelphia. Last November, November 15th, Congress passed the bipartisan infrastructure bill. The president signed it. $90 billion for transit. So as you know very well, this is the most ever in American history. $66 billion for railroads, which is the most since Amtrak kicked off 50 years ago. $350 billion for highways and bridges just over the next 5 years. And lots for airports, ports, modernizing the electrical grid, the EV charging network, broadband, and getting rid of lead water pipes. In recent years, there's been so much to celebrate. We got the Memorial Bridge rehabilitated for the first time since 1932. We got the Long Bridge authorized, Rob Whitman and I in the House, Mark and Tim in the Senate. And that's the major rail bottleneck on the entire East Coast. We cut the ribbon on the Silver Line Phase 2, despite the wind and the cold and the rain. Thanks, Randy. So, and we stole a great new general manager for Metro from Texas. And we're now fixing the GW Parkway from Spout Run to the Beltway in McLean, and doing all we can to address the safety issues on the Parkway south of Old Town, with lots and lots of crashes. But always, there's much more to be done. And all that money needs to be spent wisely and not at the federal level, at the state and local level. All we do is authorize it and spend it. And then we completely trust you to do the right thing with it, which you will. You have to make the very best decisions about where these funds can make the greatest difference. My grandparents both moved to McLean in the early 30s, where my parents were raised. Our little family business is 48 years old. And best of all, my 2 darling grandchildren are 5th generation Northern Virginians, which is like the Mayflower. So I am so grateful for your leadership, your commitment, and your selfless service for all of us who live in Northern Virginia. And please call on me to help in any way that I can. And good luck today. And please have some very happy holidays. Thank you.
So now we'd like to bring up Chair Angry from the PRTC to provide some remarks and, of course, introduce our next speaker as well.
All right, good morning, everybody. Okay, so I am Chair Victor Angry, Prince William County Board of Supervisor. I've been the chair this past year, and so I'll be stepping down at the end of this year. And I want to wish the incoming chair, this great-looking young man, bright, brilliant, flashy, bow tie fella, good luck next year. I am a Gemini. That would be me. Sorry. Okay, I'm going to do just a little bit in reverse. I'm going to introduce our keynote speaker, Ms. Jen DeBruhl, and just give a little bit of a background of things that I just learned, and then kind of make some comments based on that. Okay. So you all know she's the guru of transportation and is going to speak to us about a lot of things transportation. But what you may not know is that her favorite color was blue. She really doesn't follow sports anymore because sports has gotten so pretty wild these last couple of years, but she loves the world of swim. It's the world of swimming, so she follows that very well. Now, here's the kicker to all of this. Her favorite movie is this movie called Sliding Doors. How many people have seen that movie? Okay, I've never seen that movie, but I think that movie is a great lead-in into my comments about where we are in the state of transit based on COVID. Now, a little bit about that movie. Apparently, there's this lady, and she gets on this train, ironically, right? The world of train. And these doors she goes through gives her two parallels to her life. So each door is a different parallel, and there's two stories going on in this movie. Okay, did I get that? Did I know that right? I haven't seen the movie, but I love movies. I compare that to what we have gone through in 2020 with COVID. Okay, COVID changed the world in itself, period. Okay, we've lost over 1 million people to this virus, and our transportation infrastructure has been rocked by it. But you can remember in 2019 where the world was great and we had all these visions of transportation and the ideas, and everything was packed. And as a bus PRTC, chair for the bus system, we feel the same effects as Metro, as VRE. But in 2019, the world was different. Imagine what happened in 2020 and everything changed, those two parallel worlds. And where we sit today in the world of transit is literally holding on to what we have. And we're going to get through this. Now, I don't know how this movie ends, but I imagine already it's a success story. So I want to talk about the success of where we're going to go in this transportation world and the things that we have to do to hold on to keep this thing together. The key thing is this: all of our operators, all of our train operators, our VRE operators, our bus operators, let us give them a round of applause right now. All right. And every staffer that works in all of these industries, give them a round of applause too. Because we have a lot of work to do. I don't even know if we've really hit the storm yet. I feel like there's more to come. But what we're doing today, and even this legislative discussion, is going to help us get back to where we need to be in this transportation world. So without any further ado, I want to introduce Ms. Jen DeBruhl, our keynote speaker, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning. Ooh, that's a tough act to follow. So I'm going to apologize in advance. Mr. Angry said that I follow swimming, and I will say I follow youth swimming, and I've spent the last 3 days, 10 hours a day watching kids swim. So my voice, I tried to control myself. I did not do a very good job, but I'm just thrilled to be here today. Picking up on the themes that we've already touched on this morning, the past few years have been a story about how we can emerge from hardship. I've lived that personally, and we've all lived that professionally. But I like to think not so much about the hardships, but how we can grow from the challenges that we faced, we can overcome, and things can get better. The COVID-19 pandemic tested our industry in ways that we could never have imagined. It has forced the Virginia Department of Rail and Public Transportation and our partners to adapt and to maneuver to meet the challenges that we faced and to meet the needs of our Virginia communities. What I am most proud of coming out of this is the innovation that we have seen across the Commonwealth. Agencies like OmniRide, and I'm not just saying this because Victor Angry just introduced me. This was in my notes before I even knew he was introducing me, but innovation at agencies such as OmniRide, that really took the time during COVID to go back and say, things are going to be different from here on out. Commuting is going to look different. And so they changed some of their model away from that commuter-based peak hour trip to doing all-day localized service. And they've seen their ridership climb as a result. Loudoun County has also rethought their system with the redesign around the Silver Line. The key is you should all be proud of what you've accomplished and our dedication to the residents of Virginia who rely on us for transportation. We should all be proud of that. The COVID-19 pandemic threatened the very survival of our transit agencies, but it's been creative thinking, it's been financial support from the state and federal government that has helped us all keep Virginia moving. And together, we're going to build on that achievement. We're going to move forward. This summer, DRPT, we celebrated our 30th anniversary. That's a huge accomplishment. We are, I believe, the only state in the nation that has a separate state DOT focused solely on transit and rail. And our hey, I think that's something worthy of hearing about. There you go. A lot has changed over 30 years, but DRPT's core purpose has remained the same. We are all about connecting people, connecting communities, and connecting businesses in Virginia. Together with the people in this room, we have made many transportation accomplishments over the past 3 decades, and we've set the Commonwealth up for future growth and prosperity. So at our 30th anniversary, we are far from done. We have had a lot to celebrate over the past year. I think it's been mentioned a couple of times already this morning, but it's worthy of mentioning again. We had a great celebration with WMATA a couple of weeks ago with the opening of the Silver Line to Dulles, ushering in new transit and development for the region that's going to improve the quality of life for our residents. This extension is going to enable growth near our rail stations, diversify the region's housing stock, encourage more residents to reduce driving, and solidify the Dulles technology corridor as a major driver of economic activity. What we know is people want to live near transit. Businesses want to locate near transit. And now we're seeing how the most competitive regions have quality public transportation. We are not going to get to where we want to go without it. And around Northern Virginia, we are seeing transit ridership come back. Slowly, patiently, federal government, we'd love to have them back in the office like the state is. So while transit ridership has not yet returned to pre-pandemic levels, we have a great story to tell here in Virginia. We have seen a significant rebound statewide in transit ridership, 56% increase in transit ridership during fiscal year 22 over the previous fiscal year. And then if we look a little closer, we're already off to a very strong start of fiscal year 23. Ridership is up 29% in the first quarter of fiscal year 23 compared to the first fiscal quarter of 2022. So our trajectory is heading in the right direction. Ridership is also continuing to grow on the Commonwealth's Amtrak service as people seek out passenger rail as a way to escape from congested highways and to have a comfortable and cost-effective way of traveling. We've seen ridership on Virginia's Amtrak service hit an all-time high this year. Ridership grew by over 37% in the month of September, as compared to the pre-pandemic ridership in September 2019. During that month, over 105,000 passengers traveled on Virginia's Amtrak's track routes, compared to 76,000 during the same month in 2019. So we're not even close. We're blowing it out of the water. The Virginia Passenger Rail Authority launched 2 new round trips in July, one to Roanoke and one to Norfolk, and was able to resume an additional round trip to Newport News that had been suspended due to the pandemic. It is very clear that Virginians want more passenger rail, and the Department of Rail and Public Transportation is working with the Virginia Passenger Rail Authority to deliver frequent, reliable, and convenient service. But the good news doesn't stop there. In more growing ridership news, ridership on DRPT's intercity bus service, the Virginia Breeze, has also returned to pre-pandemic levels. In October, the Virginia Breeze, which operates 4 daily routes across the Commonwealth, had our highest ridership to date. And all 4 routes connecting Western and Central Virginia to Washington, D.C. have had record ridership over the past year. We all have a major opportunity to keep building on this growth through the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act that was enacted 1 year ago. Let me tell you, if you walk away from today with one thing that I want you to go do, it's that we all need to go apply for that funding and step up with a very bold vision for how we're going to meet the growing and evolving mobility demands of our cities and communities here in the Commonwealth. We need to go bring back more than our fair share. And you have my commitment that the Department of Rail and Public Transportation will help you do that. Public transportation is critical to the Virginians who use it as well as to those who do not. Investing in public transportation provides mobility options, spurs economic growth, generates jobs, and supports public policies that consider environmental impacts. So with that as a backdrop, you might say, what's she going to do next? I'm ready for a couple weeks off. I don't know about anybody else, because 2022 has been quite the unexpected journey for me. But I'm excited about what lies ahead in 2023. As we roll into the new year, I am looking forward to us working together to build and maintain a modern, sustainable transportation system that works for everyone. DRPT is providing support to transit agencies as they continue to innovate and to navigate the challenges in rebuilding ridership. Over the past year, as we've celebrated our anniversary, we also underwent a rebranding effort. So if you look at any of our materials, we have a new colorful logo, we have a lovely web page, we have a new open data portal. And all of that effort has been focused on making the work that we do much more transparent to the public and the work that you do much more available to the communities that we serve. As we move into 2023, we want to continue to build off of that. And in 2023, we're going to support all of the Commonwealth's transit and rail agencies with a marketing campaign to help inform people about the benefits of using transit. We did that in 2022. We launched Rediscover Your Ride in March, and we tracked the outcomes of that effort in terms of ridership. And so that marketing and that education and that outreach pays dividends by putting more folks on the trains and on the buses and off of our congested highways. So we're going to keep doing that. DRPT is also focused on growing the Transit Ridership Incentive Program. This is a program that was launched in 2020 as part of the Transportation Omnibus Bill that was unfortunately passed right as we all went home for COVID. But we've continued to work on that program, which is intended to improve the regional connectivity of our urban areas and to reduce barriers for transit use by low-income riders. So far, we've allocated about $25 million to multi-year zero fare and low-income accessibility projects, and a little over $6 million to multi-year regional connectivity projects. Some examples of those projects include zero fare operations in Alexandria and in the city of Fairfax, and funding for OmniRide to implement midday and off-peak service for their Manassas Metro Express bus route. Additional projects, I'm not going to get ahead of myself, additional projects to improve regional connectivity are going to the Commonwealth Transportation Board for approval tomorrow. So more to come on that. And we look forward to working with our partners in the region in the coming months on the next round of projects as we have that solicitation open right now. In addition to TRIP, there's a strong interest in transitioning to zero emission fleets around the Commonwealth. Agencies like Alexandria Dash, Fairfax Connector, and Loudoun County Transit either have already purchased and have battery electric buses out on the streets or getting ready to roll them out. But we recognize it's not as easy as just going and buying an electric bus and putting it into service. There's a lot more that goes into it than that. And transition planning is a critical part of the process, and that's something where I think DRPT can help the state, again, to ease that transition. We've just begun a new comprehensive statewide low/no emissions vehicle study to investigate the challenges associated with conversion to low or no emission vehicle fleets, and to help provide guidance on how transit service providers can transition successfully, and also to help us plan from the state side how we can facilitate that through capital funding and technical assistance. Guidance on transit electrification is just one recommendation that came out of DRPT's Transit Equity and Modernization Study, a comprehensive 2-year study that was just completed this summer and is the first study of its kind in the nation. And I will say, I will get ahead of myself. It's also an award-winning study that my team and the consultant team will pick up the first award that study gets later this week. So more to come on that. Very excited. Very excited to have had the legislature with the foresight to task us with that and really challenge us with a very comprehensive study. And it's something that we're going to be using as we move forward, because it was just the beginning of the work that we're going to be doing at DRPT. That study has given us a number of ideas about how we can provide best-in-class transit, and we cannot wait to work with you to accomplish those goals. So one of the things that we've talked about, at least internally a lot coming out of that equity and modernization study, is not the most glitzy thing that you'll hear about, but it means a great deal to your riders. And that is that there are roughly 15,000 bus stops around the Commonwealth. And very few of them have shelters, seating, and lighting that will provide your riders with comfort and safety while they wait for the bus. This is something that we learned through this study, is something that I think we all knew was an issue, but it's something that we want to tackle. And so DRPT is working to streamline the process that goes into installing those bus stop amenities, particularly the regulatory burdens associated with this, installing them in the public right of way. And we want to reduce the wait time agencies face in receiving shelters. They are some of the projects that linger on our books the longest because they should be easy. Bob knows this well. We worked through one of these together. They should be easy, and they seem fraught with challenges. And so that's an area where I think we can make some changes, working with our sister state agencies to be able to make those shelters get put in place much more quickly. We're also making progress on a number of statewide procurements. We've done statewide procurement for years for transit vehicles. We see economies of scale and ease for our transit agency partners to be able to do that. One of the things we've wanted to do for a while, and we've hit some roadblocks, is to be able to do statewide procurement for technology and innovation resources. We've also been able to, working with some of our sister agencies over the past few months, make a lot of headway in that space. So we're working on statewide procurements for transit technology, things like microtransit, ITS systems, and planning software. So in 2023, those are going to be more resources that are going to be made available to our agency partners, where you can just buy off of our bench instead of going through a lengthy procurement process on your own. Finally, the last thing that I'm going to mention from the equity and modernization study is public engagement. We heard a lot through the course of this study from riders, from folks that use transit systems. And I will say, being at a state agency, we don't often have that kind of interaction with your customers. And through that, have really seen that there is a need for us to work together to figure out how better to engage our communities and how decisions are made about service. So we're going to develop guidance for public engagement, specifically how we can better engage riders and potential riders who do not typically participate in our processes for a variety of reasons. I know that you guys and DRPT definitely values the importance of engagement with your communities. And so one of the things that we're going to be encouraging is the consideration of forming rider advisory groups to help inform and advise local transit decision-making. That's little things mean a lot. And listening to folks, you'd be amazed how many times we hear through the governor's office about problems with a bus stop, or somebody encountered a transit operator and something happened. People are looking for that forum to be able to interact. And so that's one of the recommendations that we're looking to implement out of the study. Last thing that I'm going to mention is huge. So it's an apt transition as we get towards the close. Long Bridge was mentioned earlier, and we are making progress on the $3.7 billion Transforming Rail in Virginia program. I get the privilege in my role to serve as the chair of the Virginia Passenger Rail Authority Board. 2023 is going to be a big year for us as we look to bolster rail capacity and expand routes to new cities and ease rail congestion or rail connections to the nation's capital. This summer, Virginians got their first look at the concept for a new 2-track span to parallel the Long Bridge dedicated to passenger rail. And that Long Bridge serves as the main route for trains traveling south of Washington, DC. It is the bottleneck that we have to overcome to get more rail into the Commonwealth. That's Amtrak, that's VRE. Our future and all paths for the future of rail go through Long Bridge. And I'm excited to say in 2023, we're going to take the steps to procure the construction of that new Long Bridge. So lots of work ahead, but lots of exciting work ahead, so that we will eventually have more passenger rail service at more time, serving more locations around the Commonwealth to help ease congestion and give people choices in how they travel. So in closing, the better mobility people have, the more connected we're going to feel as a Commonwealth. There have been incredible accomplishments in public transportation since DRPT was created 30 years ago. There have been incredible accomplishments and perseverance over the past couple of years as we've gone through the COVID pandemic. And there is still so much potential in this community for growth and improvement if we work together and we're creative and we're innovative and we're focused on solving problems. At DRPT, our vision is for a connected Commonwealth with an integrated multimodal network that serves every person, every business, and every need. And I am very much looking forward to working with all of you in 2023 to make that vision a reality. Thank you.
So we are obviously just incredibly thrilled and happy for Jen's role in this position. For any of you who know, and I know many of you do, the role of the state in public transportation is absolutely integral to everything that we're doing. As Jen, I'm really glad you mentioned it. The idea that a state agency is focused on public transportation is unique to the Commonwealth, and we are absolutely just so delighted that you're leading that agency. We do have a couple minutes for questions for Jen. So if you do have a question, we do have a microphone in the middle of the room. I'm happy we just have about 5 or 10 minutes for questions if folks do have any.
Easy questions.
Easy questions, you know, what have you. So, just a little bit of housekeeping as folks get to the microphone for our speakers on our next panel. I'm going to introduce that session. There's going to be a video either during the video or immediately after. I'll bring you our panelists up again. So, yes.
Jen DeBruhl. I first came to Springfield in 1979, Springfield Mall, when Joe Alexander, Mr. White Double Continental War, announced the Blue Line funding to Springfield. I have followed transportation for the last 20 years. And I've been to over 5,000 meetings in the last 30 years of transportation. Right? In 2018, and I've had lunch there, I've sat at lunch there a couple of times in the last 20 years. And suggested to Jennifer Mitchell the need to make Springfield a multimodal transportation center, which would include an Amtrak station. And I asked Dalton this morning, does she know why we don't have an Amtrak station at Springfield? And she doesn't. I asked that to Mr. Dalton the other day. He says he thinks that there's room to make an Amtrak stop there. So as part of the Transform Rail and Virginia plan, one of the first priorities has to be to get an Amtrak stop there. And then in the longer term plan, we're doing something called the southern tier of the Beltway between roughly here and the other side of the river. Because the western end of that corridor is anchored by the Springfield interchange and the nearby train station. So I see not only Amtrak, because most of the people in Fairfax and Loudon not near to, they're not near to the stations in Alexandria and Arlington, downtown, and Manassas. We need a place where express buses would presently come from places like Chicago, Detroit, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Harrisburg, New York, Boston. You get the picture. Instead of going into downtown Washington, they would come to this. I had 7 years in New York City, so I know the connect here, and then connect the buses to the southeast of Florida, Georgia, Carolinas. And this could save travel time for people using buses of 45 minutes from now, is still need to be seen. So I would ask the PRTC and maybe NVTC and NVTA request funding for a study. First, to make an Amtrak station happen, and second, to create the long-term transportation center. Thank you.
Thank you. So we are, Mr. Whitfield, you're right. We're currently working on a Southern I-495 transit study. That'll be finished early in 2023. With regard to Amtrak service to Springfield, the more stations you add along the way, the less timely and competitive that those runs get. So we look at that very, very closely, but I will relay your comments back to the Virginia Passenger Rail Authority that makes those operational decisions. Any other questions?
Well, thank
Very
you
good.
so much,
you.
Director DeBruhl. We very much appreciate it. So this is now our wonderful opportunity to bring in and talk to three of what I would say is a number of different leaders in public transit here in Northern Virginia, and we're very incredibly honored to have them with us. And so what we're going to do is something a little bit different, I think, than what we've done before. I'm going to chat for a little bit. We've got a video to show, and then we'll have them come up for a moderated session. But then during that time, think about questions that you may have for them as well. And so it's been great because obviously we've talked a lot about public transportation in Northern Virginia and what it looks like. And I very much appreciate Jen's comments about the number of stops, because we have 7,400 of those stops here in Northern Virginia. So the network is not insignificant when it comes to what means public transportation. We now can say we have 31 Metro Rail stations here in Northern Virginia, 15 VRE stations. And it's really a partnership of our local bus providers that are serving and working within that network with Metro Rail and VRE. And again, with 7,400 bus stops serving, more than half of the 1,300 square miles that makes up Northern Virginia. And I think, as we all know, these transit stops means access for our community members to all elements of life, including providing the important transit-friendly access to more than 900,000 jobs here in Northern Virginia. And conservatively, that vast network of transit supporting our strong and resilient economy, where economic activity supported by Metro Rail and VRE alone, and this is a conservative number, we're actually in the process of updating it, is a greater than 3-to-1 return on investment for the entire Commonwealth of Virginia. And so, in fact, a little teaser, we're doing some work in this space, and a little bit later in the new year, we're going to be putting out some new economic activity numbers for that. So we do know that COVID pandemics obviously upended the way the world works in so many ways, and fundamentally changed the way, how, and where we work. And that impact is real on our local and regional public transit. But we also know that there's a whole bunch of different socioeconomic dynamics at play that all of our governments and services are finding. And finally, that's really what all these things that we are hearing in the news. So if I can put your attention up to the screen.
From coast to coast.
This is how LA rolls out the red carpet.
Seas of brake lights.
Driving 15 miles per hour on the highway.
And seething frustration.
It's a nightmare.
It's no secret that fewer riders are using the metro system right now, but could empty trains and buses be leading to an increase in crime?
A historic infrastructure bill bringing big changes around the country.
Drivers for the D.C. circulator are on strike, and they are walking the picket line.
The transit agency says that there is a shortage of bus operators, and because of that, bus schedules have to be adjusted.
Expanding the Purple Line, the Red Line, the Corridor Cities Transitway, the Bus Rapid Transit, all are good for the climate, all are good for racial equity.
What is Randy Clarke thinking when he comes in here? He's got their shining star, billion-dollar investment, 7,000 series rail cars, which are quite literally collecting dust in rail yards right now. There's no quick fix for them. That's his #1 priority, of course. And by the way, he has to dig Metro out of a financial hole because of the pandemic and get ridership back up.
Department of Transportation announced $20 million in funding for the Long Bridge Bicycle and Pedestrian Crossing Project, and that money is actually part of the bipartisan infrastructure deal.
VRE is offering the incentive to get people to take the train.
New express lanes are now open on I-66 in Northern Virginia. Those lanes run from Route 29 in Gainesville to Route 28 in Centerville.
Some of the stations south of Reagan National Airport, all of them reopened this weekend for Blue Line service only. The stations were taken out of service so Metro could connect the new Potomac Yard Station to the main railroad system. Now that it's connected, the Potomac Yard Station will start operating sometime next year.
The long-awaited opening of Metro's Silver Line extension is finally here, and it's good news for thousands of commuters out in Loudoun and Fairfax counties.
1, 2, 3,
So many news stories, and we all know that's what we and members of the community are seeing. So I'm going to give a chance for our speakers to come up and talk a little bit about what they see, what they hear, and telling their story from their perspective. And so first of all, I'd like to welcome up Bob Schneider. Bob, he's the executive director of OmniRide, the local commuter bus system that serves communities along the 56 and 95 corridor, as well as operates Northern Virginia's Van Pool Alliance. We've got Rich Dalton, who's the CEO of the Virginia Railway Express, a system that's owned by NVTC and PRTC. It provides that important commuter rail services for Northern Virginia suburbs to Alexandria, Crystal City, and downtown Washington, D.C., again along the 66 and 395 corridors. And finally, we welcome Randy Clarke, the new general manager. How long can we say new for so long?
Let's keep it going for a long time.
Who can again host 31 metro rail stations in Virginia, as well as dozens of local and regional bus lines that are providing that network to our cities and counties. Randy, it's great to have you here in Northern Virginia. And so, gentlemen, we just saw some reminders about what the media is focused on when it comes to public transit in our region. We're getting it right. Where are we getting it wrong? Bob, do you want to go ahead and start off?
I think they're getting it right in that the issues are issues, but where we're getting it wrong is these are systemic issues. These aren't, oh, well, you have a workforce shortage. What have you done wrong in the last 60 days to make that happen? We've lost 3.5% of our workforce in Northern Virginia in the past 2 years. So you're talking about 3.5%, but all those businesses that have grown and all the expansion we're doing, that's adding jobs to the workforce. So we have something that's been in the mix for years that we are now hitting with the Great Resignation, the Great Relocation, all of those things are hitting at once. So that's an example for us of where definitely getting it right that it's an issue, but it's more than a two-click thing in the TikTok world. Is deep thinking issues that have to occur.
Fantastic, Rich.
Just without repeating anything Bob said, but I think, you know, one thing that comes to mind looking at that, yes, obviously we collectively are in a situation where, you know, ridership numbers are down and, you know, as a result of the pandemic, but it also, I think where they get it right, where they get it right is just, you know, there are opportunities out there for us because at VRE we refuse to have problems. We just have opportunities. And of course, you know, infrastructure, the newsreel, and this is the first time I saw this. There was no, but the newsreel showed, you know, infrastructure improvements, save and repair projects and stuff like that. I think that's where the opportunities lie. It's not just doing simple, you know, preventive maintenance or simple repairs. It's we need to, I think moving forward, where the opportunity is at is really laying out the ability to have these redundant transportation systems so that we can go out and when a station needs to be rehabilitated on the Metro line or even a VRE line, that we have these redundant systems and I think we're sort of playing catch up, if you will, including VRE. VRE has, you know, projects at all 19 of our stations, whether it's expansion, whether it's state of good repair. So, yeah, I think they get that opportunity right moving forward.
Randy.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. Every time I hear Adam Tuss say that quote, it's always like, what was Randy Clarke thinking? It's kind of funny the way Adam framed that. Well, I think the media is getting a lot right in the sense of there's a lot of truth to issues, right? And I think we're all in government have to be a little bit more transparent about, and I don't think anyone purposely is not being truthful, right? I don't think it's this level of expectation in 2022 to contextualize things. And so I think I'm really proud of our team and how we're going about our communications, which is when there's something wrong, first of all, if there's a fire truck at a metro station, there's something wrong. And everyone has a phone and they're going to tweet about it. So we can either lean in and be very open about what's happening, and then that builds trust and credibility, or be minimal. And I'm leaning on to being a lot more open because the only way to get better is to do that. So I think they are doing a lot right. I think on our end, I think the stories of the people that work in transit probably could be told better. And that's on us, but also maybe on them. There's a lot of sacrifice people make to be in this industry, give up holidays, work split shifts. It's not easy to work in this industry, and there's a lot of dedicated public servants. And I try to explain all the time, like, people at Metro, we're public servants. People are like, oh, like, we're a company. You get all this money. It's like, we're just another form of the government. And the other thing is, I think it's especially frustrating on the Metro side, and I'd be careful how I say this, but there is a narrative around safety that is not accurate. And we need to, as a society, and us as an industry, and us as key stakeholders, be able to tell that story a little bit better. So we need to it's a never relenting day by day effort to be as safe as possible. But the concept that metro or transit is not safe, and that is a leading story, is false. If you don't want if you want to talk about safety, go to the Beltway, right? So the Beltway, there'll be a couple hundred people die this year, right? And people go, oh, Randy, a wheel fell off a train. A wheel never fell off a train in Metro, right? One axle of one train derailed. Serious incident, of course. Over 400 million miles from the 7,000 Ks happened, and one axle of one train had an issue. So that doesn't mean that that's not a problem. We have to work on it, but we got to contextualize things, right? We are in a large, car-dominated kind of society where we have massive amount of crashes on a daily basis that impact people, and those risk reward has to be really thought through. And I'm really proud of how safe we actually are. And that, again, that's never to excuse what we can do better. But I think we need to figure out how to explain that to the average person more, and not lead with the, if it bleeds, it leads, because that's not true.
I am going to start with you again, James, and then come back this way. So coming out of the pandemic, and knowing the uncertainty of how people are moving in the region, what are your next steps as a transit agency to respond and pivot this coming year and beyond?
Yeah, first off, I think it's very clear. We are going to have some long-term structural funding issues, and I don't know if that's on your list to get through at some point. But before we get to that, though, we have to get the system running really well. Period. So that's where I look at my job is to lead the team. We need safe, frequent, reliable service. That is the purpose we exist, to serve our customers. Period. And I do think we're making a fair amount of strides. Really, the silver line was talked about. That's great. We're making progress on Potomac Yard. I can't mention that. I would love to have a ribbon cutting tomorrow, but we're going to get there on that station. The yellow line shutdown is going really well. We're on schedule. The team is working hard there. Our 7Ks, we're safely bringing back more trains today. We've reduced service on the red line again, increased frequency on the red line today, and the good wind. We have more bus service coming back later this month, and then in 23 we'll continue to bring more trains and more buses back into service. So ridership going up, we're making progress that way. On a public safety point of view, we have a lot more police out in the system. We try to find Goldilocks in our fare evasion issue. That I think we've done pretty well on to try to crack down on that. At the same way, do it in a very respectful and union-oriented way. So that's what we're really focused on day by day, how to run the system really well. And I think if we do that, that speaks for itself. I mean, people want good transit. They want to know when it's coming, signs work, we have good customer service, good announcement, all the basics is what I kind of drive in every single day.
That's rich.
So looking beyond, well, into 2023 and beyond, and Director DeBruhl mentioned the capacity enhancement programs that we're partnered with the Commonwealth through the Virginia Passenger Rail Authority, and of course, doing more specific program or projects, transforming rail in Virginia. That's going to give us the opportunity, once some of those planned infrastructure improvements materialize over the next couple of years, and even, you know, progressing on further into the decade, to be able to, you know, become sort of, you know, basically move out of what would have been traditionally that commuter rail model, and respond to the changes in ridership behavior. So those are on the horizon. Those are going to happen. But as I mentioned before, a little bit what Randy said, you know, part of this too is an opportunity for us to, you know, to take care of what we already have, and to, you know, focus on, you know, complete customer satisfaction, service reliability, those type of things. I kind of get back to, of course, we just came off of a weekend where there were college football championship games, a little bit of NFL yesterday. So a lot of blocking and tackling, right? Going back and just getting the fundamentals and making sure that not only that we are meeting the needs and the expectations of our customers today, but as we expand, as those different you know, ridership patterns, ridership behaviors, those needs from our customers change, that we're in the best spot to be able to you know, react and respond to those. So just, you know, in a nutshell, and I do want to also share that we too at VRE are celebrating our 30th anniversary this year, and it's the year of the Pearl, right? So Pearl is resilience, yeah, something like that. So anyway, good story. Looking for help here. But nonetheless, it's 30 years, and we've had a really good. In the past 35 years, we've carried over 95 million passengers. Okay, so we look forward to doing that and plus over the next 30 years. That's where we're at.
Last year we had 35 years, and I believe that's not high. The big thing for this coming year is cluster. We are in an era where it used to be all about how bad was the commute, right? Sea of break points, all those different things. How many people in this room go to the office this week? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How are we going to expect that to be the solution going forward? Of those people that are doing it, how many are there? 85. Now it's we go in for the morning meetings, then we head out and we handle all our Zoom calls in the afternoon, right? So now you're seeing a demand for transportation. But a great example of this, I have a meeting in DC just for the morning, and I'm a commuter. How the heck do I get home at 11:30? I can't. So what do? We don't have enough transportation options outside of 9 to 5, and it's killing our region. And if you don't see that, by the way, it's always been there. It's always been there, but everyone was so busy sitting on the interstate, they never noticed. That's why there's gridlock in DC. That's why there's congestion and gridlock along all these different corridors. We've always assumed it was the commute. No, it's all the people traveling locally. Most people came here in a car today. We were in transit forums, and that's how we're all going to get home. I'll be right, a lot of us, so we get our card. Mark out front, if you want to go back to Pennsylvania, leave your car here, help yourself. We can get you back sometime later. But that's an example. So what are we going to do at 10:30 in the morning? What are we going to do at 1:30 in the afternoon? And what's been really critical for us is DRPT gets that. They understand that. So as they've created new resources, we can put in trips that are now at 9 o'clock or 9:30 in the morning. More service midday to meet those needs. But what's very different is they're not going to be fully inclusive. That expectation's gone. One of the things we're also looking at is how many people use our services 5 days a week, 4 days a week. Are we going to have to create different service patterns to meet those needs? That's hard work. That is time consuming. It's arduous. It's confusing. It takes time to get it right. We can't just say, hey, let's make up a bus schedule. And if it doesn't work, we'll scrap it next week. We have an entire public process to go through. This isn't Starbucks where if that location's performing, you just never unlock the doors again. It takes a month, if not years, to put some of these things in place. And by the way, you have to have it right on the first day or we're crucified. So that's one of the other things that gets lost in the mix. So it's not just flexibility in terms of the service we offer, but flexibility in what that picture of success looks like for a transit agency. And redefining that role is huge for what 23 and beyond are going to look like.
And so talking about being patient, what are some other things, again, Strider thought when we're going through? We've got a lot of local, state, and even representatives from federal offices here. How can they be most helpful in meeting their goals?
To use a term that is frequently used, let the professionals cook, let them cook. I've heard that a lot lately, but when the pandemic hit, it was 2 weeks to flatten the curve. So what did we do? We just immediately came in and said, okay, keep everything normal. Well, then we realized that's not going to work. The bus drivers were terrified, and rightfully so. We didn't have any answers. So what did we, the leaders, do? We made the decision, we called our chairs and said, we're cutting service to this. I remember VRE instantly went to a new schedule. VRPT was the first organization to just call up at a CTV meeting like the next day. We're going to throw an extra month of funding for everybody out there just to help you survive it. We didn't know, but here's the cool. The technical professionals redesigned the routes. The technical professionals developed the safety programs. The technical professionals put in the distancing programs, the health and safety programs. We did it all. And the elected officials held our feet to the fire over success. Keep doing that. Let the experts cook. Let us be great at what we do, from the technical staff to the drivers to the CEOs, etc. But you as elected leaders, A, hold us accountable, and B, deliver the resources so we can actually deliver on the vision. If it's all vision and no money, it's just a storybook. If you want the success, give us the opportunity to be great and put the resources behind it.
So as an ask, I would say at the state and local level, continue to partner with us on the innovation, on the technology. And the thing that comes to mind here is, and I'll a couple examples, like some projects that were to some degree already in place that got completed over the last year. That really complemented VRE's, some of the changes that VRE made early in 2022. For example, I have a handful, but I'll give the one that comes to mind is through leadership of our operations board, we did modify onboard bicycle policy. Just to give you some quick numbers, pre-COVID, we may have averaged about 60 to 70 bicycles on board our trains, predominantly in warmer months, right? So we modified our bicycle policy. We modified that and made some changes so we could accept bicycles on every train, on every car. In the month of September, just a couple months ago, the month of September, we had over 1,000 bicycles on board our trains, right? So take that back a little bit. Fairfax County, there was a 1,200, I believe about a 1,200 foot paved pedestrian bikeway that was completed in 2022 that connected to our Burke Center station. Things like that. Woodbridge, or excuse me, Prince William County, I believe in the Woodbridge district, working on the 123 interchange concepts and designs there that are very heavily emphasizing pedestrian and bicycle pathways and stuff like that to connect to the Woodbridge station. So it's those things that maybe, of course, we're a large region, but we do communicate quite a bit, and albeit our staffs work collaboratively together. But it's those things that we need to continue, I think, simply because you know, just to continue to aspire to make those first mile, last mile connections. So just want to give those couple of examples there and where there's been some successes, but obviously some opportunities in the future to keep focused on those elements of our region.
So Randy, how can I folks help you?
Yeah, I would say the number one thing I think that we have to do internally, and I guess I had asked back for our external partners and especially electeds, is get out and actually see with your own eyes what's happening and not rely on anecdotal. So our world really is dominated by anecdotal. You're at the grocery store and I heard that this is a problem. That doesn't mean it's real. And I hate to break it, the news, everyone, Twitter isn't real either, right? There could be some real on there, but there's a lot of just conjecture. So open invitation to anyone in the room that would like to get out on the system, and that's bus or rail or a station, a construction site. I think we need to lean into that a little bit more. I know we do some of that, but I think even more. And we're going to start doing a little more open house stuff with the public at large. But I encourage you to get out and actually see and learn from a little bit from the boss point of view, the professionals of the opportunities and challenges. Because it's not all bad. There's also tons of opportunities, but the opportunities are going to be offset with not just funding. It could be time or partner coordination. So, Director DeBruhl mentioned a bus stop. And when I got here, I was like, it's very hard to even do a bus stop around here. Should be able to put a bus stop up in like a couple hours. It takes like months of discussion and planning for a bus stop where you sit for the bus, right? And the buses are frequent, you don't sit that long. So that's a good example, right? We're not building like Metro Center Station here, right? So we got to be able to do that kind of stuff. So that'd be one. And then the other is a little bit with that vision and reality. So I actually think we need to start being bigger dreamers. Seriously start having an aspirational vision for this region and not pieces of the region. And so I probably have maybe of all of us, maybe the most unique that way in the sense of, we're 3 jurisdictions plus the feds. So at a conference the other day, we literally are the only thing that stitches the region together. And somehow we have to do that. We have to get Arlington to understand that Prince George's County success is their success, and Montgomery County success is Fairfax's success, and DC success is everyone's success. Yeah, because that's actually true. And electeds need to help lead that. And that's very hard when you get elected and you're in a little, it's all human-made boundaries for elections. That's not how people live their lives. No one stays in their little jurisdiction. I live in a city council ward in DC. I don't even know where the boundaries are, nor do I care. I crossed the river today. I'm in Springfield, and I'm going to be at La Plaza later, and I think I have something in Roslyn later today. That's life, and that's how every one of your constituents interacts. They go to the kids' soccer game in a different jurisdiction. They work in a different jurisdiction. We need to get people to get out of their, constituent silos into actually thinking bigger. Now, it's easy for me to say that because I'm not an elected official, but that would be the aspect, which is thinking of how all boats rise when the ocean rises. Because otherwise, the negative is the ocean will rise for climate change, and we're all going to be impacted.
So we've had a lot of conversation about some celebrations and ribbon cuttings. And what are some other major projects in the transit space that you guys would like to see happen in the region? You'd like to take that first.
Okay.
All right.
One thing I know my staff would love is we would love bi-directional I-95. Just put it out there, don't let it happen. But the reliability of 495 and 66 that we see operationally is a game changer. Because what that does is then it takes bus transportation and gives it a fixed guideline. So the very thing that made heavy rail work is that independent line, we have access. But the other big, it's an infrastructure item, but we're bifurcated, is Director DeBruhl talked about the need to go in and have technology as part of that procurement concept. We don't use anything that is the same. I think we might have the same head signs, but I don't even know if we have I know you don't have head signs, but I don't even think we use the same head signs. We have sort of the same fare collection, but not completely. VRE's fare collection is independent from Metro, and we're demoing our own independent app, which neither of them have. So when you think about what is the next big infrastructure, it is going to be technology. And that is something that The region needs to understand that the implications for electrification or automated vehicles, all of those things are going to have to come together, and the unifying factor is going to be technology. If we don't figure it out, we're going to be light years behind, not just that.
What's next and thing beyond the long bridge? Because I do.
I'm gonna agree with just about everything Bob said. In fact, I'll just agree with everything Bob said. And then take it beyond the long bridge for a second. Let's move our way north, because I think it's an opportunity to draw attention to some projects that are outside of Virginia, specifically in the District of Columbia, the Washington Union Station terminal rehabilitation program. And then I'm going to take it even further than that and take it beyond the District of Columbia and go into Maryland and all points on the Northeast corridor. Why does that matter to us here in this room? Well, come back to transforming rail in Virginia and what we're trying to do here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, whereby we are working to separate passenger and freight rail. Okay, that is the long-term objective. But in the meantime, we have to deal with not only expanding that capacity, but also dealing with the subsequent congestion. So just pointing to the Northeast corridor has a 2030 C35 2035 plan up there to expand the corridors up there to do something similar to what we're trying to do at a grander scale, of course. Because here's what happens is that any train, passenger train that's on that Northeast corridor, particularly coming southbound, that comes into Washington Union Station, if it is not on time or relatively close to on time, then as that train slips into the Commonwealth of Virginia and moving even points further south, it just adds to the unpredictability of these services, the passenger and the commuter type services that we operate here in Virginia for Virginians. And I will also say that also there's an opportunity there that we'll see on the freight rail side as well, as those projects materialize. So if nothing else, stay focused on what's going on there. That at Washington Union Station and points north on that border, those projects matter too. So.
Yeah, so a couple, I'll start with some stuff in Northern Virginia. So I see I recognize our board chair, Paul Spenberg, is in the back, and I don't think there's anyone that's more excited to see Potomac Yard Station eventually for a ribbon cutting than Paul. I appreciate, his long years of leadership and on that particular project. We also have, the development around that alone, as you all know, is unbelievable, right? Whether it's Virginia Tech or Amazon, you name it. So that's long-term, one amazing investment. Our second entrance at Crystal City, also a really important component of the network. Our bus network redesign is incredibly important. We have to stitch our whole region together from a bus system point of view. We have a lot of partners delivering bus, but I think we have a lot of room to optimize what we do. We have some redundancies here and we've got gaps there, and it's all taxpayer money. So Metro doesn't have to run everything, but we also then got to be smart with electrification and where garages are and what we're trying to do. And I would again go back and say, let's get the politics out of it. Let's only be customer centric, not political jurisdictional centric. And then the big one, from an infrastructure point of view, is we got to move the second Roswell crossing. One way or the other, that's the bottleneck. So we're going to try to push a little bit more trains next year through the Roswell tunnel, and then we're maxed out. Maybe get our communication-based train control gives us the slightest bit for another hit. That's it. So that's been kicked around here for a while, but our goal is to bring something to the board probably in 23 for a local preferred alternative, so we can finally, as a region, decide what we need to do. And if we don't do that in the right time frame, we will not be eligible for the IAJA infrastructure money that only has 8.5 years left. And so we need to get in that federal process, as you know well, to be able to secure that, because this is not going to be built in a couple of years, and it's going to cost billions. But from a regional point of view, it's critical. And I would say one of those major connection points is actually Union Station. Union Station, where we're going to spend a couple $2 billion, make it arguably the most important thing outside of 10 stations in the entire country, and there's only one metro line to it. That's a perfect example of how we connect Virginia to Union and back into Maryland and stuff like that. So, that and top of those involved.
Fantastic. And getting close to wrapping up at least the conversation up here. So folks in the audience, think about any questions you'd like to ask of our transit leaders here. But maybe starting with you, Rich, what's one underreported piece of good news that's happening at the agency?
I would say, I'll go back to what I said previously about bikes on trains and stuff. I think that's and it's twofold, of course. Underreported could be maybe we're not providing enough information out there for people to report that. But I just find it very, we were previously or prior to making some changes and stuff like that, we were kind of, because we were capacity limited, we had, frankly, we operated trains pre-COVID that were over capacity. We just had standings only and stuff like that. So that was just an example of turning a negative, in other words, empty seats, if you will, into a positive by being able to put more bikes on trains. So, yeah, I'll use that one.
How about you, Randy?
Well, I would say at our agency, one thing that I think, that I'm really proud of what we're doing at the agency, the public, it's not a physical project, it's not ridership trains. It's, we're moving forward for a strategic transformation plan. We're going to take that meeting, I think it's NVTC next Friday. This Friday, so I can't remember what day of the week it actually is, it's already Monday. But we're going to be doing a little roadshow on that because we really want our stakeholders to be part of that process. And I think one thing that when I got there, working with the board was, I think we really needed a North Star. And there's been a lot of things going on, like having a document that we all agree what we're doing, the whole region gets behind. And I think, there's always this conversation about Metro, right? And it's like, what a drama on Metro. Always, it's just nonstop. And I think the underreported thing is that there's a lot of good happening around and a lot of committed people, and that also includes the board. And so, there used to be years of a fair amount of controversy on board and staff, and I'm just really excited how great the relationship is between the board and the staff, and how collaborative it is, and how I think we're being a lot more transparent and trying to really show under the hood a lot more. And I just appreciate their leadership and commitment. They're putting in hours and hours and hours of volunteer time on top of their lives to do this. And I think it's easy for pundits to just, when there's a problem, say, oh, these people are not doing that. And the reality is there's a lot of people that really care, that are doing a lot of good stuff for, their community. So I think there's a little bit of underreporting on that. Maybe that's always going to be like, where people don't, there's no clicks on that, but we have good structural stuff going there right now. And I think that's good.
Very different approach for us is that we want best places to work in Prince William County. We didn't just survive the Great Resignation, we thrived that. What I mean by that is almost every employee that left the organization in the past few years retired or relocated. Right, that's a big, big deal. This isn't, and actually a couple of them work for VRE, so but I think that's what makes the difference, is that we're developing talent that VRE wants. We are cultivating leadership. Karen House, Director of Operations and Ops Planning, oversees the bus committee for the entire region that includes WMATA. So we're taking different leadership roles, but we also attract the talent. We have a CFO who came to us from Albany, New York. So we're able to not only keep the talent we've got, they're earning promotions, success. We have a number of people who are in this room who have received the benefit of that. So we're not just cultivating new talent coming in, we're actually building our bench strength in a number of different areas. And we're really excited about that. The one area that I think we need to put a lot of attention to next, and it affects every transit system in this country. We have to do a lot more in the classic transit worker, the mechanic, the bus operator. We have to put a lot more time and energy into retaining that workforce and rebuilding. I can remember, even me growing up, where the transit worker was someone who stood on the same level as a police officer in terms of the impact of the community. We've lost that. throughout the country. We've lost that in major cities, we've lost that in suburban areas. And I think we need to help restore that and return that position to its rightful place of impact on communities. And if we can achieve that, I think it'll have some long-term benefits for us, not just as a region, but as an entire industry.
Thank you. So I asked a number of questions, but we want to hear questions from all of you. There's actually a microphone in the middle of the room. So I'd love for folks to ask some questions. Otherwise, folks are going to be rushing out.
Or we'll do what usually happens.
Yeah, they will do it, but it looks like we may have a couple questions up here. Good morning. This is Virginia. This has been really a great discussion, and one of the things ideas about it is the whole idea of the vision thing. And I think we're all here together because we have, I think all of us have a vision of how the whole region is going to work, and all of these systems, the buses, the train, here, everything fits together. But as you pointed out, we got different systems, different sign systems, different, and when we talk, it's going to be in silos, so that these are huge issues, and that's not the way we do it. But as elected officials, what we're always going to need, and nobody's sort of kind of, we need money, right? You gotta sell it. And so I think we should talk a little bit about, should we, get a way, if there's a group vision, so that every one of you gentlemen, everybody in this room has the same vision for the whole region, and that might be fairs or signs or a logo or something. I think all the pieces are there, but I don't think we have a real clear vision ourselves to then sell to our public. So just that.
I would say yes. Please. That's the way it should be done. And in America, people always say, like, take Metro. Oh, well, I was in Paris or I was in Hong Kong and I looked at, I would like that too. Right? Like, we don't have a bunch of people working Metro that don't want to be the best in the world. The politics of transit in America are the reason we have transit outcomes like we have in America. They don't have those same politics in Singapore and Hong Kong and places like that, right? It's just a different world. So we got a lot of people to support transit, and then we got a lot of people who want low gas prices and have parking. They don't work together. A lot of people love transit and want cul-de-sacs or single family homes. They don't work well together. So this is the America that we're trying to, grapple with. But it goes back to this jurisdictional thing of, can we rise above and have a vision for the region? So my last role, I was in Austin, and we put together and we took to the voters in 2020 a really big transformational transit line called Project Connect. And it's all these multiple new rail lines, and subway, and bus lines, park and ride, and the whole thing. But another interesting thing we did, I think it could be interesting for this region, we have a housing crisis in this region, and we paired affordable housing with the transit referendum. We put $300 million of affordable housing with transit, and we won that referendum in a place that had several referendums lost. And I think those two issues are actually so linked in this region. And I don't know if that same model works, it's so jurisdictional, but I think that's what we need. We need this vision to come together of what this region could be, whether it's from New Carroll and the Tysons, you get the idea. And it's what's good for us, it's good for both of them, which would be 12 other different partners, 15 other partners. So there's no sense solving Metro's funding issues coming up. They don't solve everyone else's. We need to figure that out. So I think you're and other leaders coming together and actually rising above the jurisdictional tax framework and bringing something larger would be incredibly welcome, I think.
Yes. Yes, as well.
There you go.
Thank you. I'm Mike Turner. I'm the Ashburn supervisor. Randy, the Ashburn station opening was phenomenal. It's just a great silver line opening. It's just terrific. We really appreciate it. We are struggling on the Loudoun County board with whether or not to criminalize fare evasion. It's a big issue, and there's a lot of discussion. Do we want to give someone a lifelong criminal record for hot and turnstile? By the same token, we're taking a $40 million annual hit on fare evasion. Criminalizing it reduces that to by about 13%, but that's still what a $25 million hit every year annually. I'd just like to emphasize, I know we're testing 2 new fare evasion mechanisms, physical mechanisms, one not so good, one seems to be working pretty well. I would just emphasize, can we really get the top priority on that and spend the one-time money to try and fix the problem? And I'd be interested in your comments, what we can do, because the board is really struggling out.
Yeah, obviously, be careful how I say this in the sense of the way it's currently set up, each jurisdiction has its own rules. I don't personally think that's actually really helpful. We should have a transit agency that has one rule, right? So I have police officers that literally carry around 3 or 4 ticket books. If they're like at Pentagon City, they issue one piece of paper, and then if they were at Foggy Bottom, they would issue another, and then if they're in Carolyn, they issue another. That's insane. That's not how normal government should function. So Metro is kind of caught between not only 3 states, if you will, DC state. And don't put me on the Twitter 51st state. I'm just trying to be equivalent here. But also then it's this competing jurisdictional thing inside Northern Virginia or Maryland. So I think we probably should get to some type of regional decision on that. When it comes to fare evasion, we also got to be COVID one way or the other has exposed that transit truly is an amazing public service. And so I would argue, the way the rules are today, we got to try to get every dollar out of every fare possible. With that said, in COVID, we tried to tell everyone don't pay and just get on board trains and buses and keep apart from each other. That's a pretty hard genie to put back in the bottle, right? And during COVID was one of the largest social justice movements in the history of our country at the same time. And transit disproportionately moves a lot of people of color and low-income people that most people in our society, I think, are starting to frame up that transit's value is bigger than just transportation. It really is about possibilities and connecting people. And so then, the counter argument to that is, when was the last time you paid the fire department to show up and put a fire out of your house if you had a heart attack? You don't. Taxes pay for that. I live in DC. I have no kids in public school. I'm having to pay taxes because I need a good school system for the economy and for the health of the community. So I think this is that larger regional conversation we have to have. DC last week announced something that they want to work with us on. Whether that happens or not, there's a lot still to go. One way or the other, we have to pay for what we want as a society. And I think that's where we need a lot of elected officials to say, what do you want to do, right? Because I guarantee I can collect every single fare possible, but we're going to have a massive amount of pushback in relation to the criminal justice system. And also, does it make sense to pay a police officer to enforce $2 fare all day long? And like, there is that balance of that stuff. So we're trying our best, not necessarily an ideal state, but I think that's something maybe NVTC, us and others should really be thinking about larger fare conversation, because it's happened all over America. It's not just here.
And then I would add, and the one thing I figured out a long time ago, operating a bus-oriented service, you're just pushing the tax money around the table. So, for example, we've had past programs with homeless organizations. How do they get their money? Tax dollars. So what are you literally doing? You're taking tax dollars and putting them into another tax dollar place. It's a shuffle. So one thing I would take a look at, who is evading the fare? I mean, is it people in suits that have a federal subsidy? Probably not. So instead, can you look to ways to capture more of their revenue and then identify, well, who is participating in fare evasion? And is it an income issue? Is it a difficult, and by the way, it is really hard sometimes to get access to transit fare. We don't sell the passes in enough places, or the app is unreliable. Ask some of those questions. And then there's different ways that you can achieve the very result you're looking for, harvesting the revenue the right way without creating the very concerns of multiple ticket books and foggy reports and saddling people with that impact. There's a lot of empty seats out there. There just are. And what's the punishment to us if we help fill those seats? Almost none. What is the punishment to society if you don't give that opportunity? Far outweighs that impact. So think about transit as an opportunity, not a loss of resources. Think about something that can build your community differently.
Thank you, Jason Stanford with the Northern Virginia Transportation Alliance. My question today is really about ridership. If you look at, I guess, over the last decade, not just during the pandemic, but before the pandemic, we've had a 30% increase in density in high capacity transit corridors in our region. By 2045, that's almost going to double. We're putting housing in places where we have transit. But over the last decade, despite the growth of our region, we've actually seen some of the transit ridership numbers fall even before the pandemic. So my question is, for each of your systems, I know they have a different, serve different populations. What's one thing that you would sort of identify that could be the biggest thing to really not just get ridership back to pre-pandemic levels, but actually grow ridership and have that keep pace with the growth of population for the region?
I mean, I'm happy to go on our end. We got to run the place better and deliver more service. When you do that, a lot more people use your product. Like if you're going to sell coffee, coffee better taste good, and you better be able to get in and get out with a cup of coffee. That's our job, and we got room for improvement.
I'll just similar. We just need to be able to put ourselves in a position again more near term, long term to essentially offer a service. At the time of day, the day of week that folks demand it, and at the level from a capacity standpoint, at a level where we are either meeting or slightly exceeding the demand.
For us, it's simple. It's especially on a computer-driven service. We rotate about 1/3 of our population every 3 years. So what you're ending up with is how easy is it to know where to stand at what time to be there. We as an industry, and it's not that bad. Josh and I work at a lot of other governor's transportation conference, and we're not good at it because we don't own a lot of the infrastructure. We don't spend our money on marketing. We don't spend our money on computer outreach. We do in terms of, hey, we will set up a table, but we don't have people at the parking lot or chasing people down who are sitting in traffic. We don't spend the money on the ads. We do a little, but we don't do enough. And that's the big difference. One of the biggest things that we increased our ridership, it sounds crazy, but it's really hard to read the words. Proudly serving the communities of Prince William County, Manassas, and Manassas Park in 6-inch letters as the bus passes you at 65 miles an hour. Instead, I bet you've seen our swamp. That's an example of how you can do things different. What is your brand? What is your identity? Are you recognizable? And for us, it wasn't. I'm in Manassas, and I see that giant swirl. And then 2 days later, I'm in DC, and I see that giant swirl. There's a connection that my brain will make, but then we have to make it easy for someone to figure it out. And if we can do that, then we can compete with the convenience of the market.
Yeah, I just want to double down on this part, which is really the same thing about 3 times connected to your question. No one cares about our, I appreciate the logo comes in. No one cares about any of us and our alphabet soup and who delivers the service. And that's our issue as a region. We have an enormous amount of providers. We're basically turning into the Bay Area all over, right? I'd argue there's too many providers. It is what it is. I can't put that genie back in the bottle either. The customers don't care. They want to be able to go point A to point B conveniently. And we have set up a bunch of jurisdictional funded operations without the centralized kind of overall customer experience for the region. We have to just expose that and be truthful about it. And that means everyone can't own everything and get the credit for everything. That's our 2 choices. And if you do that well, we're going to have a lot more people use transit because it's fully integrated to their lives. Or over here, it's exactly just designed for a jurisdictional kind of concept. So we actually, believe it or not, we're in charge, so we can control that.
Robert, there was a setback tonight, taxpayer allowance. In November 2018, it was announced that Amazon HQ2 was moving to Arlington County. The following week, I went to the Lamar Board meeting and I testified on the session that the Roslyn bypass, which had been considered since 2012, I first heard about it from a guy named Nat Pottinger, who was strategic planning head of Lamar, and then talked in 2014 with Richard Sarles, from the general manager. He explained that they could build a link between the orange silver line east of the courthouse station, the blue line north of the Arlington National Cemetery station. Be a 3/4 mile tunnel, and it would cost less than $2 billion. So I said, well, to me, Amazon Q2 makes all justification why that link should be built. In fact, I'm hoping the Walter Outlaw is still here, because he works in Crystal City and he has commuted for probably 15, 20 years, having to change Roslyn. So the whole issue of the Roslyn tunnel capacity could be alleviated by building what would be, let's say, 2 to 3 billion. But the idea of the second Roslyn station, the second Potomac River tunnel, cost 15+ billion, and another 15+ billion to get it to Union Station. We need to take care of what can be capitalized benefits in the next decade, not 20, 30 years from now. And so similarly, Mr. Solomon explained that when the demand justifies, a second link to be built south of the Arlington National Cemetery station under the Pentagon parking lot connected to the yellow line, which is presently utilized by the one line. I never heard back from Omada. I've raised this repeatedly with various officials. And here I hear today, the new general manager is talking about the second Roslyn station. Last year, in fact, earlier this year, the NVTC sent a letter to Omada in which they were supporting various aspects of a long-range plan. What is it? Why is it that I can't get an answer to a simple question to what seems to me to be a very logical priority?
Was that a question? I started 120 years ago, so I can't speak to the past. I apologize for that. The experience with Omada. At the end of the day, the Roslyn tunnel is going to be maxed out with a couple more trains an hour. We got to do something. I wasn't suggesting. I know what we're going to do. What I'm saying is, in 23, we have to advance as a region. What we are going to do. There's been a lot of work done. The next step is getting to the local preferred alternative to the federal process. So that is what we're going to do in 23. Move that public process forward to decide as a region what we're going to do. What that is today, I'm not quite sure. It's been sitting for too long.
So what I'd like to do, gentlemen, is give you a chance to sort of make what's the last thing you want folks as they walk out of the room to be thinking about into your perspective. And so I don't know, Bob, do you want to start with sort of what's the parting words and message you'd like to share with the audience?
So go back 3 years, maybe 4, we had the government shutdown for like what, 45 days. We still had 85% ridership. Pandemic hits, commuter services kind of empty out our local services, ran every single day, and our ridership now is higher than it was pre-pandemic. The message is the local service at the end of the day matters, even in a community like Prince William County, when it is 25 miles from the urban core of DC, yet we have those needs. And that's one of the really important things we have to continue to do. We're talking regional, we're talking state of the commute, but every one of us, even VRE, has people who rely not just on VRE for commuting in or commuting out, but they're feeding a family in that service, right? But they're also riding localized services in DC, they're riding localized services without ride. All the pieces matter. I think that's one thing that can get lost when we talk about state of the commute and we talk about express lanes, trains, etc. It's a big distance, but we also have a lot of service that goes 1 and 2 miles, and that makes a huge difference in the community.
Parting comments. We talked a lot of substance here, a lot of different, not just projects, a lot of successes and stuff like that. I think just for me, looking forward is, I'm an eternal optimist. I think our best days are ahead of us. I think we have a lot of things, not just at VRE, but just regionally within the transportation network that have really teed us up for even future successes. Moving forward, we've learned, I think we've learned valuable lessons, if you will, and I think we can frankly leverage off of that. But more specifically, my parting comments was, have a safe, enjoyable holidays. And I do have a couple of sanitary tickets in here, I think. Just saying.
My friend Gomez, well, one, obviously, everyone should have a happy, and safe holiday season. That's a good plug for all of us. Absolutely. But I'll go a little bit rich. I think the future is incredibly bright if we decide to make it bright. And there's a lot of people in this room that have a lot of influence on how bright this future will be. And again, and it's not just all about money, right? It's about what we do with that money, the streaming of that money, the hooks and conditions of that money, and the outcome, which is customer centric. So I think we can all continue to work to be a little more transparent and a little bit, even though we all are good partners, to take that partnership to a higher level, and that's both as operators, but also as policymakers. There is a big opportunity here. This is a growing, robust region. It's not like, there's parts of the country that are softening economically or reducing population. Like my wife and I moved back to the region. We're like so happy to be here. This is arguably maybe the best place in the country to live, if not the best, one of the top ones, obviously. Very economic competitive. Comes from Beyer said a bit of me, obviously. We have a chance to just take it to the next level. And what we own that responsibility of operator leaders and policymakers is not just what it looks like next year, what it looks like 10 and 20 years from now. And then 20 years from now will look like that based on what you all do in the next couple of years. That's how it works, right? Someone had the vision to do Dalton 60 years ago, and we just did the ribbon cutting last month. Things take a while, so yeah, I'm not saying it should take that long. The point is, we got to put markers down where we want to be, and sometimes those are hard votes and hard decisions. But we get to control our future, and I'm really, everyone I've had a chance to interact with, I'm feeling really excited about what the region is willing to put forward.
Well, on this busy Monday, with everything that's going on, I want to thank you so much for coming out. Let's give our panelists. And so just wrapping up today, I do actually want to do a specific shout out to one of our commissioners, David Beyer, who's sitting back in there. I don't want to surprise him too much, but Mayor Beyer from the city of Fairfax did not seek re-election, which also means we don't have the pleasure of continuing to be on NVTC. He's actually been involved with the commission since 2014. And been a leader of our legislative policy committee for a number of those. So I wanted to do a personal thank you and appreciation for your work on behalf of the city, as well as within the region, and all the things that you do, because I do believe you're one of those folks on a number of transportation boards and commissions throughout the region. So a big thank you to you for all you've contributed. And again, thank you to everyone who joined us in person today, and to all of our speakers and panelists. It's just wonderful to have everybody here. It's actually really nice to not do either online or hybrid. We did hybrid last year. That was definitely a challenge. And finally, I do want to thank our chairs, Annika Gere and Victor Angry, for coming up and being part of this. We can't, none of us staff can do anything without our leaders within our boards. And finally, and maybe to me most importantly, a huge shout out to the NVTC and PRTC staff for putting this together. There's a lot of things that happen to bring you together today. In particular, because I get the opportunity to do this, I'm going to do a very special shout out to Rhonda Gilchrist, Wendy Blyther, Matt Friedman, Melissa Walker, Tenley O'Hara, Henneday Cultural. It's just everybody on the team. You guys can do a wave, a lot of work behind the scenes. Thank you so much. Have a healthy and happy holiday season. Get some swag on the way out. Perhaps your last cup of coffee, or maybe your last cup of water, because I can see that here. Thank you so much.